If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. In addition to that, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other platforms. Why not check it out today? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on what time you're listening to this. Just wanted to greet you properly. So I wanted to piggyback on my live that I did on Facebook with my mom, where we discussed the beginning of the 5 stages of grief. We kind of briefly went over the last 2, but not really. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about that and to lead you in the direction of how, you can study during these hard times. Some of us that are living in these times, we are experiencing a lot of death. Like, there's a lot of death going around. And when too much death hits you at one time, you sometimes don't know how to deal with that. And if that is you today, I just want to share the process of what you may be going through. And I learned this as, I would say growing up. I experienced it. If you saw the episode that I did on Win with Miss Alexis on Facebook, you would have seen that, I talked about my experience with death when I lost my dad at 17. If you've been following my podcast, there's different episodes where I mention him often because that alone not only changed my life, but it molded my life in a different, well, I can't say different because that's all that I know. However, I will say that it prepared me for the days that we live in now. Some of you may understand that because you may have experienced death at a young age. So if you have, leave a comment, say something and hit me up or send me a message. Like, let's talk about this stuff. I want to start having, more lives where we're communicating, because sometimes we as people, we hold too much in, and there needs to be a safe place to discuss it. And the times we're living in right now, I feel that, hey, I'll use my platform to discuss it. So let me get into it. The 5 stages of grief. Denial. Now, as my mom shared, as I shared, this is in no particular order. Everyone's life is different. Everyone experiences things differently. However, 9 times out of 10, you're going to go through these 5 stages. So when you get to that particular stage, remember that this is a part of the process, and you have to trust the process, because when you don't, then you stay in some areas too long. But okay, so denial. Coming to terms with the loss is one of the first steps in our grief journey. Our first thought is to deny the news and hope we are imagining the whole situation. While denial is normal during the grieving process, it's important to remember that God is always there. And we have to definitely understand that we know that, there's power in life and death. And the Father pretty much, is in control. However, our timing's not his timing. So, we have to accept it. It's very hard to say, oh my gosh, you're telling me to accept the unthinkable. And that right there it is what it is. You have to accept the unthinkable, because the unthinkable is what's going to basically help you heal. And it would never make sense. And to me, I personally feel that it all lines up to our timing is not his timing. So we can't deny it. It has happened, and it's okay. It hurts because you're like, this is a blower. Like, I really am going to have to deal with this for the rest of my living years. But we can't stay there. So Psalms 46:1 is definitely something that can help us. God is our protection and our strength. He always helps in times of trouble. And it's true. We have to accept it. It's okay to still have conversations here or there, but you have to be careful, because you don't want to be talking to familiar spirits, because that's what's going to start visiting you. So you have to start letting it go. And that's the most important part, because that's where when we don't start letting things go, or accepting that death has taken place, we then will find ourselves dealing with familiar spirits, because they gone. They're in that place. And we have to be careful about that. One day we'll have more of a conversation, but that's really why you can't just stay in the denial place. At least that's been my experience. And I base my experiences off of my experiences and the word. So it tells you, let the dead bury the dead. It sounds harsh. It sounds like, oh my gosh, forget about it. But you have to accept that it has happened. Now, accepting it doesn't mean that you're going to be in a happy place. It doesn't mean that you're going to be excited. It doesn't mean that you're going to be thrilled, or it doesn't mean that you're going to be happy at all, to be honest. But you'll accept it. And anger, that leads us to the next one, which is anger. When you enter the anger stage of the grieving process, you may tend to lash out and blame others for your loss. While it's perfectly okay to feel angry and vent your feelings, you have to remind yourself that, all right, I got to tighten up. This is nobody else's fault. Don't nobody else control life or death. Unless there was murder involved, of course, there's going to be like major anger there. However, that's where forgiveness has to come. It has to come. You got to let it come. And the word tells us, be angry and sin not. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, which is found in Ephesians 4:26. You can be upset, The word a lot of people don't like to hear is pissed, but you can be pissed. Like, I was hot as fire when my father passed. I was like, Lord, you showed me this when I was a child, but I didn't think it was going to happen when I was so young. But yeah. So anger, you're going to experience it. You're going to be mad. You're going to think everybody else caused them to die, or you could have prevented it. You're going to go through a lot of emotions, whether it be mother, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, friend. You're going to be angry, but you can't allow that anger to turn into sinful ways. Then, as you calm down, again, they may not go in this order. You might be angry first, then be in denial. It goes in cycles. Excuse me. So, bargaining. Next, you're going to be bargaining like, all right, you're going to be trying to figure out like different scenarios than the one that actually happened. And it's like you kind of are avoiding things because you don't really want to accept it. So it kind of goes into denial, but it's a combination. Like you're just going back and forth. It's like you kind of got over it, but now you're trying to figure out, well, what if and why not? And you know, you start to focus on personal regrets and recall times that you may have caused pain to that person. Like they could have, you just start trying to find all different ways and avoid the reality. And the bargain in place, you can't stay there too long because that's having you go back and forth. And it's making you double-minded and not stable. And you need stability in your brain. Because if you stay there too long, it leads to depression. Depression, you may tap into a little bit where you just feel like, woe is me, I can't carry on, don't nobody need to talk to me. Yes, there's that time that you need to yourself. However, if you know you're a person that belong around people, then you need to get around people. Like, don't stay in a house in four walls by yourself too long, because then your brain is going to have you playing with familiar spirits. And that's not what the Father has for us. So, Matthew 5:4 kind of it sounds like I'm being harsh, but this is the word. Like the word says, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. You can mourn, however, don't stay there too long. Because you might find yourself in a state of depression and deep sadness. At this point, you may feel emotionally and physically removed from your family and friends. It might feel impossible to face the day-to-day of life, so you choose to remain isolated. While depression may feel unbearable at times, comfort from those close to you can help ease your sadness. And if you or anybody else like that you personally know that is basically dealing with the depression stage of grieving, remember this beatitude from the book of Matthew. Like, again, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Know that God is going to be with you. However, when you don't allow his presence to lift your spirit, you got to start shaking it. You got to start getting back. How do you get over depression? Sometimes it requires therapy, and other times it requires self-love. And you got to start taking care of you. You have to get up. You can't worry that, how am I going to do this without this person? You got to do it like the person is with you, but most importantly, God is with you. And there can't be excuses, because if the person was living, they would want you to live. So, and it's not to say that it's easy. It's not. It's going to take a fight. Like you're going to be fighting to do this, like for sure. So, and the final thing, because if you don't stay in depression too long, you can finally find your place in accepting it. And this may sound scary to some, but may sound encouraging to others if you feel that you've been in a sad, depressed place, missing a person for too long. It took me, I would say, about 13, 15 years, something like that, to get into the place of acceptance. And it's bringing tears to my eyes as I talk about it right now, but I'm going to hold those. But when you stay in that dark place too long, acceptance is a long way. It's far. But when you start to live your life as if the person lived theirs, and what I mean by that is sometimes the loved one that left needed that rest. And when they needed that rest, that means that we have to rejoice in them being in the place that they want to be in. And it's not just about our needs and what we want. And we don't know. Nobody knows their day, their hour. So once you get to that place of acceptance, it's hard, it's rough. It took me a very long time to get there because I stayed in a place of depression. I stayed in a place of anger. And I did stay in a place of denial. Yeah, bargaining, I was in bargaining a lot. I think that's what took me the longest, to be honest. Between that and depression, they went hand in hand. So don't feel bad. You're made out of people, so you're going to experience death differently. But yeah, acceptance. Psalms 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Like, even though this is hard for me to heal from, even though I want to fight, kick, and scream and break down, not live my life the way I used to, it is now time to just do it. Like, it's just time to trust. I was speaking it in the form of, that's how you got to speak it to yourself. And like the text says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That's the type of Father we serve. We don't walk in fear. We don't walk depressed. We don't walk defeated. But yeah, as difficult as it may be to go through the grieving process, it does get better. During the acceptance stage, you begin to fully acknowledge your loss and allow yourself to move forward. No matter the difficulty of the previous stages, know that God is always with you and will never put you through something He doesn't think you can handle. And we have to understand that. And I pray that you listen to this, and if you've gone through it one time, you get in your word, you do some research. And I just say all that to say, if you were not having a good day, I hope you start. I'm sorry, that's something I couldn't understand. If you're not having a good day, I hope you start right now. It's definitely time to have a great day on purpose. It's time to live on purpose. It's time to do what God has called you to do. And as you continue to do that, you will heal. And if they knew the Father, you will see them again. But you got to heal. You got to do what you got to do according to His will. I love you. I care for you. I hope that, you heal sooner. Like, I don't want y'all to take 13, 15 years to heal from a plan that God had or God allowed. So, I hope you're encouraged. Again, I hope you have a great day on purpose. If not, start now. And good day.